See, we cut ourselves off short.
All right, thank you, Dan. Good evening. This is the SVSU regular meeting for June, even though we've had a couple meetings this month. The first item on our agenda is an executive session for personnel matters, and then we should be out here by 7:30. Larry?
Could I just ask for a point of clarity? You folks brought up the question about quorums at our last meeting.
Okay.
Could you just verify that we are...
Okay. So I'm sorry, because I did not include, I wrote back to Tara specifically.
Okay.
So, oh shoot. So when the SVSU had requested that we go from 3 members to 2 members, I'm not sure where the notion had come in that we would be keeping the same quorum. The whole point of submitting the request to the state board to lower the numbers was so we could in fact have a quorum more easily. So a quorum is one more than half of the body, and we are officially a 12-member body. So the quorum to meet to hold action is 7 members. The rule for voting is it is the majority of those voting, according to Robert's rules in the big Robert's rules on page 23. So the abstentions count, they don't count as a vote. So in that instance, it was I don't even remember what the vote was on. We don't have the minutes yet from Richard. Right.
Is there anything to say that every district has to be representative?
Actually, you have to have a majority of the districts represented.
Majority.
Not every, but you have to have a majority of the districts represented. So if we have 6 districts, or 7, is it 6 or 7? 6 member districts, 7 total, so you need at least 4 districts represented.
Member districts.
Member districts. And I believe we have everybody here today. Are there any other questions on that, Larry?
6. Yes.
Okay. Any questions from the board? I will actually post the email that I sent back to Tara Sky. I'm sorry I had forgotten about it, but I meant to print it out and copy it. So can we have a motion to go into executive session for personnel, specifically an employment issue?
So moved.
That's Leon and Ken. All in favor? Opposed? Nobody.
Air conditioning there.
And where we're going to go?
To the conference room? Do we need Donna? Thank you, Dan. Good evening again. This is the continuation of the SVSU regular meeting. It's about 7:30. We're continuing. The agenda tonight is public comments, but if you do have public comments on the special ed focused monitoring report, I'm going to ask, we're going to move that up to like 2A. So if you have questions on that, you can ask them there. We will, I do believe that the presentation will not be 20 minutes. Do we have it on the screen too also?
Oh, you want me to go first?
No, yes, in a minute though. So do we have public comments?
Yes.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Marie Schutz, Personnel Director of the Central Office. And this is Lori Langner, the Finance Administrative Assistant. We are here to ask the board, who sit around this table not only as SVSU members, but also as representatives from respective local boards. Bennington School District, Pownell School District, Shaftesbury School District, North Bennington Graded School District, Mount Anthony Union High School, and Woodford School District. Most member boards have recently voted to give their off-contract employees increases that generally follow along the 3 percentile. You will soon be presented with a new ESP support staff agreement with a 3% increase. And the teachers are set to receive a 3.4% increase when they return to work in August. We would like to ask the board, why not us? What have we done that you feel we do not deserve an increase on par with your local districts? Lori?
Over the years, we as off-contract employees have been told that we've had to wait to see what the teachers settled for, or wait to see what the support staff has settled for. Here we are knowing that both groups are to receive at least a 3% or greater increase, but when the discussion arose about off-contract increases, they were voted down. We would like to ask the board why. Several of you are members of the Finance Committee that worked on the development of the FY14 SVSU budget. That budget does contain the money for a 3% increase, but now we are asking the board to explain to us what it is you feel we have done to not be equated to the rest of the employees within the SVSU. It's our sincere hope that the board will consider increases to the SVSU off-contract employees at a rate of 3.075, which is the average between the increases given to the teachers and the increases expected for the support staff. Thank you for your consideration.
So I'm going to, certainly the board can take it under advisement, but I would like to clarify a couple things. One, the ESP contract has not been ratified. The board has been told in executive session that the, which I'm now saying in open session, that the increase that has been tentatively agreed to is 1.5%, and some of those members, half of those members will get a step. There are 6 or 7 steps in the ESP contract. Mount Anthony just came out of executive session in open session and voted 2% on their off-contract employees. I can only speak for those 2 groups. I do have, tonight I was going to share that the median income in the country went up in 2007 and has decreased every year since to 2012, and quite a significant dip. And in the teacher's contract, which I pulled both the grids because I had a feeling this might come up, is that the percentage in between before the steps is not even 2%. But if you add a step in there, if you're lucky enough to get a step, yes, it might bring it up further. So I certainly think that this board, when they go into executive session, will consider your 3.75 increase, and that it is not...
It was 3.075.
3.075, I think the board will happily consider it, and that when we come out, we'll make the motion in open session, and you'll see how that turns out.
Thank you. Could I ask the board what the decision was as to why they were voted down originally?
Well, I think that in the minutes that it will just reflect a no. I certainly the board members can speak for themselves who voted no.
I'd really like that.
Well, this is not really the forum, but I'm going to let Larry answer that question for himself, and maybe Fran.
And it is strictly for myself. I am a member of one of the communities that you mentioned, and we were handed the number $473,000 with the implied connection to central office. Okay. We have that deficit because of central office. Okay. So my question is, who caused the deficit? How much is it? I'd like to know if that's the final number. Okay. And who allowed it to happen?
So this is exactly what I didn't want to happen, because what Larry is talking about is obviously a personnel issue, and the deficit that he's talking about, which was brought up in open session, taped, live on TV last week, had to do with assessments in excess of what was budgeted, that the CFO asked the board if they would consider an additional assessment. It was not a reflection on either of you or somebody standing there. It just certainly is, I'm not disputing what Larry said in terms of the numbers that were presented for a deficit, but they were not tied to you. And so I don't want that misconception to be that...
I don't believe I said the word tied, I believe I said the word implied.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I just want to, I don't think this is an appropriate forum for this. So if you have other comments, you're welcome to say them.
Those are different. They're not from the executive. They're individual comments now.
Right, they're individual comments, not
Now,
as...
they weren't necessarily.
For me, this is personal. I work very hard at central office. I think almost all of you know that. I bring home work nights and I work weekends, and I don't get any overtime pay, which is fine, because I do it for the kids, and I do it because it's important to my community that I do this job. Mr. Johnson, as a secretary, do you think that I could be the one that would approve spending of over $473,000 in excess of our budget? That clearly is nothing I could prove. You would have to look to your administration to figure out how they let that happen.
So Lori, I'm going to say that this is really inappropriate.
Yeah, but please classify the Johnson so they won't get us mixed up.
Mr. Larry Johnson Shaftesbury.
May I ask the board chair, what would the proper forum be for us to get these answers if it is not at an open session at a board meeting?
Go ahead.
First of all, I appreciate your coming to speak, and I think you've spoken well about your feelings about what has happened. This board is going to take up this issue in executive session after this meeting, and I think they need the space and time to do that. You've presented your point of view. I think that especially I appreciate the description of the work and the value of the work, and I have expressed that on your behalf, and I will again. I am the superintendent of schools, and I am the person ultimately responsible for all of it. Thank you very much. And thank you, Lori, and everybody, all the office, you are here, and we will take it up.
So, Julie and Gano, are you here to comment under some other issue, or is it just, is it a public comment? It is a public comment.
Public comment.
Okay. Can you state your name?
Okay. Hi, am I on? I'm Julie Haupt, and I'm a speech-language pathologist. I've been working in this district for 18 years. I've worked in every school in the BSD, in the middle school, North Bennington graded school. And I'm just here to stress and plead with you that we need 2 administrators running the special ed department. It's not a job that can be done by one person. When I was first hired here, George Carpenter and Kathy Buck were running that department, and later it was Kathy Buck and Daphne Tuthill, and even then they were stressed beyond imagination to do the work they did. But I think we all know that I will tell you that it's a job that cannot be done by one person. I did a little research on the web today and found that in the Bennington-Rutland Supervisory Union, that would be Manchester area, they have 2 special ed directors. In the Brattleboro area, they have a director of special ed and a special ed coordinator. And I'm more than certain that we have many more, much higher caseload of special ed kids here in the SVSU because we're such a big supervisory union. We really need these people to support us so we can do a good job educating our students out in the buildings. With 2 people at the helm again, we can be assured to have their presence at meetings for high-need students. We don't need, I talked to Catherine yesterday, we don't need someone at every single meeting, but there are some meetings where we're going to be discussing things that either because they're touchy or because they incur costs, we need to have someone from central office there. If we had 2 people, we could have more regular meetings. with and amongst the special ed staff so that we could be updated. The regulations are changing all the time, the forms are changing all the time, so we could problem solve, so we could bring up issues that are coming up and share, so that they could plan and organize training for the special ed teachers and the paras. And I could go on, but I'll stop there. But it's not possible for a single person to do this job and do it well, and for us to serve the kids. And I think in the long run, it will cost us more if we only have one person. Thank you.
Jim?
Could I ask her a question?
Yes, absolutely.
In your professional opinion, we have a large special education professional staff. Can all these people be bifurcated or trifurcated into 3 functional groups or rather than have 2 people, both co-presidents?
Okay, now I get your question. That's a good question. In the past, when it was Kathy and Daphne, one of them focused on the elementary schools and the other one focused on the secondary schools, the middle school and high school. Is that kind of what you're asking? Like, is there a way?
Actually segment it.
Right.
So one person is clearly in charge of, as you say, elementary, and if that's the way to go.
And then I'm sure there's other tasks that would still need to be, split up. But I mean, in terms of when we're at a meeting, we had problems this year because sometimes we'd have one administrator at one meeting on a certain student, and then at the next meeting for that student, maybe have someone else. And that it's not a good use of resources. It's confusing. Then you spend a lot of time bringing someone up to date. So yeah, yes, I think there is a way to do that.
What I'm thinking is one person on top, and 3 or 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 7 below, lower level people handling different sections. That's how.
So, Jim,
are you going to hire more people to do that?
But,
yeah.
But one of the things that has come up over the last month, and Julie, thank you, and Gano for coming. Catherine is obviously not right here, but she was going to talk about one of the things we had already approved at this board level was the second assistant superintendent. It was asked to be put on hold, till we discussed it. In the meantime, I believe, and Karen's here, right? Karen, Donna? Mm-hmm. I think there has been discussions around a couple different models that with the person who's in subbing right now, Michelle, in terms of brainstorming ideas for different structures at the administrative level. And I'm not trying to speak for Catherine, I just know that she'd asked me last meeting to take it off the agenda because she was still working with people on how this might look. So I'm not sure that there's a definite plan at this moment, but I do know that people are looking at what the best structure might be, because we do have 650 special ed students this FY13, and we are the largest title supervisory union, the recipient of title money. So I think that there is a plan. I'm not saying I know the plan, I just know that they're working on a way to take what Ray had talked about in terms of there are a lot of people on the ground, and there is some supervision piece and some needing to be at meetings piece that they're all talking about. So Ray, did you have a question?
Who's working on it?
Catherine, Karen, Michelle.
Yeah, okay. But are you, at this point in time, since school is not in session, you have some access to all the people who provide this actual services in buildings, and I believe they have a role to play here in helping sort this out.
Well, I can't, I wish Catherine was here. Can we just wait until she comes back? Because I do know that she's contacted Wendy Pierce from the high school, and I know that there's other people involved, but I can't do that report. I mean,
I'm not asking for a report. Maybe this is more a comment. I think that advantage ought to be taken of the unusual situation that we're in, and that people who actually do the work in the schools need to be part of this discussion about what structure is going to work.
Well, and I think that's what Julie and Gano are doing there.
Well, yeah, but I think there are a lot of different things that could be brought into this, and they have their opinion, and I appreciate and respect it, but There may be other opinions out there as well.
Karen?
There has been ongoing conversation, and people from the field have been giving us informally, there hasn't been a formal opportunity yet, Ray, for people to come together like a committee or anything like that, but there has been many people in the field who have been providing us input around the teacher facilitator, team leader, head teacher, director. So a lot of different conversations have been going on, the pros and cons of it. People who have worked with side by side with those people. So we do have that, and I too hope that the people on the road, you know, get to be part of if that becomes more formal. But I've got lots of notes from people who've given us input, pros and cons of it.
Okay.
So
thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so where are we? Public comments.
Have those enrollments in your packet.
Okay.
I'd like her to hear what we have to say.
Okay, so is it specific to the report, or is it just a regular?
Oh, no. Has nothing to do with it.
Okay, so Donna, who's doing the state of the district?
Did you want me to do that first?
Sure.
All right.
Compared to missing.
Thank you, Catherine, coming back.
That's what I read yesterday.
Want to introduce yourself for the camera?
I will. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Allocation. I'm the Assistant Superintendent. And I'm here tonight to give, we're calling it Part 2 of the State of the Supervisory Report on all of the data that we get on respect testing for our annual AYP calculations, and also some of the things that we are working on in the district to improve student performance. So I have a short slideshow, and I will just kind of buzz through that. You want me at the mic, right?
Yes.
Okay. And let's see.
Does this go along with this report, or?
It goes along with the copy of the slides.
Okay.
Paper, the short paper. You wanted it short, right, Sean?
Yep.
Okay, short.
That's what my fellow board members said.
I know. So maybe in the interest of shortness, we will hold questions till the end.
Okay.
Okay, and then I would always be glad to answer questions if you want to call me, or we can have a discussion that doesn't need to take your whole board meeting time. So tonight, I thought we would we certainly can't go through all of the data that's in this book, and I'm sure that's not the point of this presentation, but really to show a little bit more about the big picture of some of the things that are being done, the context of the story, what is happening around us. I know that we've had a lot of things happening here in Bennington, and knowing about the budget that we had difficulty with. And then focus on what is working, because our accomplishments can tell us a lot about what directions we should be going. So instead of focusing on just things that are wrong, really look on some of the successes that we've had, and try to look at what are making those particular efforts so successful. And then what are our actions for future growth and development? And we have been talking about those over the past few meetings, so this is more of a reflection on that. And I hope this will help see some of our trends. So we do really need to consider our community strengths and challenges. We all know about our economic demands. We have been working in collaboration with the Economic Development Group to come up with a plan. I've also been personally involved with the Workforce Development Committee that does play a part in that economic development, and some of the collaboration that we can form in improving education to help our young people meet their college and career goals so that they can stay in this community. And then looking at a piece of that really is our professional development as all of our staff members need here in the schools to really bring our education up to match the needs of our community. This is a slide we put together. It's just so dramatic here in Bennington that I wanted to include it. It's not in a way that is an excuse about education, but just really to show the background of the dramatic changes that we have seen since 2008 in our economy, and that 60%, and that's an average, that is not the highest point in all of our schools, 60% average are on free and reduced lunch, and the change from 2008 is really stunning. So I think that this is just sort of a backdrop of what we see in our results of testing every year and following our progress, because really our schools have been making progress and steady progress, at least holding their own. Usually the correlation is when poverty goes up, achievement goes down. And really, it is not that close of a correlation. It does not look like that. We are seeing some progress. So the focus on education to make improvements in an environment like this really are to do many of the things that we are focusing on. Positive behavior support. We had a great presentation not too long ago from our MAU behavior specialists. This is also going on in most of our schools, and it really strengthens students to be able to build respectful relationships and understanding that makes them feel secure enough to learn. We have a real strong focus on communication skills through all of our literacy initiatives. We are offering active learning experiences that are exciting in the classroom and bringing in Common Core activities that are bringing more learning to actual experiences in real life. And I applaud the board at adopting smaller class sizes as an important part of learning. And so you can see we really are focusing on the things that will make it better in a community where there is such a high level of poverty. Our incoming kindergarten students, part of this big picture really is that children come in struggling. They come in really not meeting national norms. And so the efforts that our staff are making really are showing the progress. And Karen Burnell was here before to tell us about some of the ways she's implementing assessments in our early childhood programs using the Teaching Strategies Gold Early Childhood Assessment. And we hope to bring you more information on how that is evidence of our progress in the early grades. And probably by the fall we will be able to share some of that with you. But it's making a big difference, and I think it's a good record of how we're doing that. So then students coming in, they come in far behind, and we're bringing them up to where they need to learn. So this is some data about the progress that we have been making. It's been rocky. I think that it shows here in the elementary grades that we are really maintaining a level of instruction, even with that rising level of poverty. We are maintaining. We, of course, would hope to see that gap closed and really exceed, and in some of our areas, you'll see tonight, we are doing that. And as students have more time in the elementary grades and move up into middle and high school, you'll see gradually they do come to that level, and that's an exciting progress to note. And of course, this past fall was really a difficult time, followed last year when we had a lot of struggles here in the district. But we are holding our own and hoping to make more progress in all of those areas. So our K-6 accomplishments, sometimes we wonder, well, are our 5th graders ready to go to 6th grade? And another source of our data is the MAP testing that we do on a more regular basis than the state testing. And this data shows that our BSD students are 71.8% proficient in reading, 72.3% proficient in language, and 73% proficient in math. These numbers look a lot higher than the state testing because it is different testing, but much more focused on standards that are Common Core. So we're showing good progress in meeting our goals moving up into middle school. This is a repeat, so I won't dwell on it for you, but it does show those cohort growth over time, and you will see the gradual increase. The color blocks are the same group of students, and you can see their growth over time here in reading and then in math. So our 7th and 8th grade accomplishments, our grade 8 writing scores looked really terrific this year. They really are exceeding the state levels, the state averages, and the female students, because they do aggregate by gender, you'll see that they are even moving above state averages, and you can see 82% and 81% proficient in writing, which is a very exciting accomplishment.
Just one quick question about that graph. Those are girls at the state level?
Yes.
In the graph? Okay.
And in our reading, our kneecap scores are looking very good at 9 to 12, also matching, coming up with the state averages in the level of proficiency. And you can see that tremendous growth, again, in the female students, especially in reading, and how they were starting to take a dip and made tremendous growth this past year in the reading. So math. Here's an area of challenge that we need to be conscious of. I know everyone is and are working on it very hard. You can see the gender gap here is really significant still in math. And the levels of accomplishment, although the male students are starting to match the state level of proficiency, female students are dropping way behind. So I think it's an important area for data monitoring and reporting the progress, looking very closely at what it is that encourages girls in math and science, and it actually is what I'm working on my research with Katie Schoenbeck to look at some of the things that she is doing in the high school specifically that is raising girls' math skills from low B-level courses to being the highest levels in the math accomplishment. So there's some very interesting work going on about what strategies really work and how we can help implement those. The AP scores show again how our level of accomplishment grows up through the grade levels, and you can see that shaded area there for the MAU scores are some of the best in the state. It's really amazing how the calculus is 4.24, and the U.S. average is only 2.95 over, and also over Vermont at 3.03. So some great levels of accomplishment in these AP scores. So you can see that levels are, students are learning. It takes time to make that progress over the years, but we are seeing some really significant
Why is music so outstanding?
Probably one student.
It could be, yes, and it is different levels, different numbers of students. So next steps, in August, again, we will begin by sharing all of the schools' data-based progress and looking at their Green Mountain Star action plans. What is the data they're going to present to you that shows progress? The AYP won't be released until August 6th. That's our annual yearly progress report according to the state. They are predicting that more and more schools will not make their annual yearly progress goals simply because the expectation is that 100% of schools will all be proficient by 2014, and we know that that gradually squeezes every school out of the picture. So they're coming up with a new plan. And all schools will continue to work with our coach and look at our Green Mountain Star and school improvement planning. And our leadership is also looking at new ways to help develop greater progress at the school level. Many of the principals are going to attend a workshop this summer in August that is all about improving performance in reading, and how do you really develop a response to intervention program that monitors student progress and helps individualize instruction to bring all students to higher levels. So our kneecap scores are available mostly in this book, but also on our website, and we will also post this report on the web with our kneecap scores.
Thank you, Donna. Great pictures.
Donna.
May we ask?
Question, please.
Yes.
Some 20 years or so ago, I was criticized very strongly for making a comment on my own life observations. The comment was, men and women approach problems and solutions in different ways. Now, obviously, yeah, I got in a lot of trouble, and a female took me to task for it too. Female veterinarian, no less. Okay, but we know that our girls often have more problems in math and science, which is often based on math as well. Are we researching different approaches to, how can I say, draw in the female way of looking at things?
Yes.
Yep. Good. Okay.
There is a lot of research, and if you want me to present my thesis to you, I will some night. I don't think everyone...
I would love to hear it some night, but not tonight.
I would be happy to fill you in on that research. Yes, a lot.
Thank you, Donna, and I appreciated the introduction as well, focusing on where we're holding our own, what we're doing well. Also, our tie and involvement with the community and economic development. I'd just like to recognize that Frank Barnes is also involved in that as well, and Rick has also attended some of those meetings in the different groups of workforce development. And certainly Karen's work with her staff in early childhood and transitioning with the kindergarten teachers to kindergarten has been very important as well. I also wanted to just mention the pictures again in the presentation are part of Futures, All of Us Learning Together, which appear in the Bennington banner as their donation every Saturday, usually on the inside of the front page. And again, it's just we're real students engaged with their teachers or with their activities, and then we just want to make sure that gets out. I also wanted to draw your attention to the opening letter in the book, and I want to acknowledge, as Donna did, that this has been a challenging year. Last year was challenging as well, but this year has been challenging with regard to personnel and communication issues. Certainly special education has been very much in our focus, and it's been in the focus for a while, brought to more alertness from a parent's point of view this year from November and December meetings, which has been helpful in helping to identify some of what we need to work on communication-wise. And people that have been following the media and understand that there's work to be done. The Focus Monitoring Report, which was released on Monday, helps us structure that work. We have a corrective action plan that must be done and started in development and submitted to the state in 30 days. We have a year to fulfill that action plan that we come up with. That is meant to be a collaborative team that addresses that, and I have put on the website of the SVSU website not only the focused monitoring report, but also the column that Donna Leap worked on to summarize that report, and also an ad, if you will, an advertisement for members of the communities that make up the supervisory union, parents, guardians, employees from administration, faculty, staff who wish to serve on that collaborative committee, and I would ask that we have at least one board representative on that committee. We're hoping to have that committee put together by July 3rd. It will start its work the week of the 8th, so those of you that apply, and I will get those that committee put together as quickly as possible. And I guess I will stop there because I know that is part of some of the focus that people wanted to speak to tonight.
In terms of the
focus monitoring
the
report.
focus
And I think we had some public comment that we wanted to hear.
So, do you have any questions from the board, and then I'll go to the public? Ray, did you have a question?
Lots, but I think you should go ahead, and I'll just talk to Donna another way.
Catherine, while you were out, there were a couple questions after Julie spoke, and Karen and Donna, or I'm not sure who answered the question. I tried, about looking at the structure for special ed.
I can give an update.
So you can do that under superintendent's report if it's here.
I don't think it was. Do you want me to do it now,
Sure.
quickly? I can just speak quickly about it. We have looked at a structure, you know, because I've been very public about it in meetings, that I was looking at a structure that would use an assistant superintendent for student services, which would be wider than special education, and a director of special education. That came out of a discussion I had a few months ago with the personnel committee of the SVSU Board, looking at how we can bring more visibility to the authority level in decision-making. There was quite a lot of discussion more recently at the Personnel Committee. There were a number of board members who had concerns. I also had a meeting following that with administrative staff, including principals, to look at that model and really look at the concerns of parents that we have heard over time, as well as individual board members, that we need more guidance and consultation oversight and decision-making at the building level. There's a concern that if we put an assistant superintendent in, they would be in the central office and not out in the schools. So we're looking at a model right now of 2 directors, one for student services, one for special education, that would work together to provide oversight and support in the schools. We're looking at a model that would include head teachers perhaps, or facilitators as well, that would have the liaison to confirming decisions that were made. We're looking at a model where the directors and principals would make decisions on service delivery from what the IEP teams have identified. We're looking at policy changes that need to be made, procedural changes that need to be made, as well as making sure, and parents have spoken as clearly as teachers have and administrators have, about the need for more collaborative time in the schools around special ed and coordinating services, working with paraprofessionals that the professional staff supervise. Also, time to come together as a staff for professional development that is not just at the beginning of the year and the end of the year, which has been what we've been restricted to. And one of the models we're looking at is monthly meetings of all special educators to review the quality control on IEPs and service delivery, as well as professional development and support in the field where they need it. And Goldview is one of the programs that we have purchased. It's an electronic program to help with the tracking of IEPs, as well as program that has the potential to help us with our tracking service delivery, what services have been delivered. So that's what I'm looking forward to. That discussion needs to continue because we have to see if we have the finances to support that particular model, but we know it's something that needs attention. My timeline and priority is to fill the director of special education, and I'm hoping that we can do that in a timely way and have involvement. So I think that's the update I can give right now.
Great. So are there public comments? Go ahead, Melanie.
Hi. So I'm Melody Niles, and I'm a resident of Shasberry.
Could you speak up a little, please,
Yeah.
Melanie?
And I have 4 children. I have 2 of them that are college graduates. I have one currently that's 16 years old, and I'm seeking out-of-district placement for her. And I've had a lot of problems with this whole special services. It's totally been new to me. It's been an extremely poor experience as a parent. My child was in Shasberry. He was past his 6th grade. and they told me, oh, he's all set for 6th grade. Well, I knew better. So I had him tested. I paid for the testing out of district. He was doing 3rd grade skills. So at that point, I had a mediation with Catherine Buck. I ended up pulling him out of school and paying for private school. I went to my mediation with Catherine Buck, actually 2 of them. She never returned my calls. She never did any of the mediation agreements that we both had signed. And so I can't afford to keep him in a private school. So I wanted my I want my money for out-of-district placement. And so I had to go through the process. So the process, again, was to have him tested with Mount Anthony and their testers, which they just completed. And we just had a meeting. And I had one of the poorest reports I can imagine handed to me as a parent. They said my son was tested on April the 49th. I couldn't find that on my calendar. It was full of typos. I mean, when I went to school, you had to proofread your papers. Apparently, the people that work for Mount Anthony do not have to proofread their papers. They can just give it to a parent. So, of course, I disagree with their testing, and I want an outside tester. So I contacted Michelle LaRoche, who I was told to contact, and I contacted her, and she didn't contact me. Then she finally contacted me with a list that I could pick from. So I contacted her again and told her where I would like to choose, and no response, and apparently she no longer works for the union.
Actually, she does. May I clarify that? She's 2.5 days a week, and she is still employed by us. She will be still giving us some days into the summer.
Well, there again, you're back to you don't get a response to.
Well, Melanie, with all due respect, please, we're just in transition we have no director of special ed. This is a director,
This kid is in 9th grade now.
I understand.
I pulled this child out at 6th grade, before he went into 6th grade. Now we're going into 9th grade. I can no longer afford private school and taxes. I've been a taxpayer here for 32 years. I was born here. My parents were taxpayers, and so were my grandparents. I'm not getting anything from the school system. Now, you're in transition, but where do I go? Because I have a son that needs to go to school this fall.
Yeah, we will respond.
Okay, thanks.
Melanie, did you, in terms of the report, were you able to direct the poor report to Sue or to somebody?
Sue was at the meeting, and Leah Pesh was at the meeting, and Leah Pesh rolled her eyes at the meeting. Huzak, actually the teacher from Huzak, came up and explained all the services that she gives my son, which is he's in a math class of 3 people. She spends an hour afterwards in study hall with him. He stays at study hall from 7 to 9 at night, where she will stay and help him. He has dyslexia, dyscalculia, and ADHD. And the meeting was like 0. It was totally what I did not expect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's too much detail.
My name is Tara Skye. So just first, I don't know if you followed up about the bullying thing by the policy that will be adopted here, but my concern when I reread that policy that's going to be adopted is, again, it still didn't address, and I don't know if what I said months ago about student or teacher to student bullying being included and not left out, and I see that it wasn't made to the final draft, so.
Leon, can you?
Well, I think
we have made a change.
Yeah, I think I can express that the advisement on the policy development has shifted over the years. It's not an excuse, Tara, and it should be there. I think it should be a separate policy that needs development, and over the years, the federal government and state government advisement has been to separate all those different bullyings, student to student, adult to adult, and adult to student, or student to adult. They should all be separated. Then the advisement comes, as it did from the Secretary of Education here in Vermont, to put them all together. I think the employee-to-student really needs to stand alone, and it's one that needs to be developed, and we should be following statute while we develop it. But that is my opinion, and that's probably explains partly, not entirely, but partly how that happened. But you're right, it has to be addressed. We cannot ignore it.
And I would just hope that it become apparent that if you don't actually have the policy in effect, because it actually hasn't been signed or for whatever reason, that regardless of the law that says you need to have this other policy, the model policy, be in effect, that be relayed to the staff members, levels of administration, say in this school or any other school where they're confused about that, and then potentially give wrong information to legal counsel from Agency of Ed about having the correct policy when in fact that's not true.
We have to follow the law too.
But second to that, and just because I looked at the stuff that was on the agenda for tonight, and last week when we were here talking about the extra money that was going to be needed, and there were a lot of questions back and forth by board members, but nobody asked exactly why there's such a shortfall. So I just wanted to know, like, just why? Like, why are we like $400 and something thousand short district-wide? Like, when I look at these, like, things that came out, the reports, a lot of it is like SLPs, OTs, transportation.
So Tara, it is actually a whole separate item here on the finance related. I don't know if you printed out, Rick posted at the board's request. You'll see in the finance related, there's a number of different, I don't know what you printed out, you seem to have a lot of papers.
Yeah.
So when we get to that, which is the next item, when we get to that, I'm sure that the board members will have questions on the transfers and what happened. I mean, what all these pages and numbers.
Well, I hope so, just because last week nobody answered, or nobody asked, and there was a vote and everyone agreed to just pay it at the SVSU level, the administrative ones, but nobody asked why. So I don't know if they'll do that tonight, but...
Tara, I want to just correct you. I think that it was very clear that Ray and others had said that we would go ahead and approve the assessment, and that Rick would in fact do exactly what he did, which is the details that were posted in terms of the transfers in and out of different areas. If you're looking for blame of an actual person, I don't think you're going to get that here.
Oh, I don't need a blame of a person. It just seemed like a lot of stuff special ed related, or...
As you probably know, anything to do with special ed that's written into an IEP has to be, we have to pay for it. We can't not pay for it.
And it's reimbursable.
And it's reimbursable that comes back to the district.
So was any of this Medicaid related, Medicaid reimbursement related?
We're going to get to that. I mean, you can answer that question, Rick, but we're going to get to that whole finance area next, after the public comment.
I just wanted to make sure that the specific questions I had, in case no other board member had them, were ones that would be addressed. Like, I just wanted to know, initially, there's an annual Medicaid Reinvestment Funds report, and I don't know if we have access to that, if we can see that, or where you would find it.
Yes, there is, yes. It is a public document, and...
Can you speak up, Rick? I'm sorry.
Usually, usually I don't have a problem with people understanding and hearing me.
Well, that's to the TV. That doesn't amplify you.
Yeah, there is a Medicaid Reinvestment Act. There is a report. Off the top of my head, where exactly you find it, I don't know, but I can make sure that I get a copy of it to you.
That'd be great. And you don't know then just how much the district in general receives from Medicaid reimbursement? Roundabout, not an exact figure, per year.
Yeah, it's in the neighborhood of $500,000.
Okay. And then I was only concerned, the last thing was on the report that or the letter you wrote, saying that you uncovered and corrected significant issues around special ed, but you don't know what you don't know. So,
that is true.
Should the community be concerned?
Yes.
And that's all you can say. Oh, only because I am
You know,
concerned, so.
this is not appropriate. This questioning back and forth is not, I mean, I understand you have a question.
Right.
Your question was, should the community be concerned? He answered yes. I'm not going to ask him to go into details right now. I'm going to ask the board if they have questions. If the board members want to ask that question, they can ask that question. But I do believe there's another public comment that is, before we get to the finance, that would like to speak.
Okay.
I was thinking of Jean. Jean, are you?
No,
Yes, Lori.
Lori.
I want to hear what you have to say. I don't, is it okay? Yes.
Sure.
Thank you. Special education, always here in the forefront. We'll be continuing to make it an issue because what we have found, and it is, as Catherine had mentioned, the parents that are coming forth and discovering that we have huge gaps in procedures, policies, other issues such as billing and monitoring and all of these issues that we have uncovered and brought to the supervisory union that has now made them very aware that we are not doing a good job. And we have continually asked for involvement of the board in a really aggressive way. And unfortunately, we're still here saying the same things, and I do understand that there are programs in place, that things are going to change, that we're going to address that issue. Meanwhile, these children have lost another year of their education. They have lost significant progress that could have been achieved had these services been provided. They have lost the chance to transition well into the next grade, into the next building, because of the budget issue. They do not have effective transportation. I'm saying that generally because we lack in our contract to make sure that our providers have a clue on how to deal with disabled individuals. And I say this to the board because this is a lack of responsibility. And I'm sorry to say it this way, but I will. You are going to be held accountable in whether it gets paid through special education funding, whether it gets paid through regular education, or whether it gets paid through litigation, if that's the course that has to be taken. But as you know, the parents have come to you and asked, please, educational partnership. That's what we're looking for, and we continuously, nobody steps to the table. And I understand there's all these challenges. However, these students do not deserve to lose this kind of momentum. It is critical for them in their development to have what the IEP team has determined to be appropriate. It's not extra. It's not above and beyond what regular students receive. It's what's necessary for them to engage and participate in their education. And I'm going to say it again, please step up to the table, do something about this, whether it takes 2 people at the top, whether it takes 50 people at the bottom. It's what these students need. You know, they're being directly impacted by all of these decisions. And to date, my student doesn't have a transition plan in place because of the budget. My student does not have transportation. My student doesn't have extended year services. And you know I've been coming here. It's not that I'm not an active parent. It's not that I haven't been willing and said, hey, look, we got to fix this. It's not because I'm not doing that. It's just that nothing has changed since I've been doing that. And I'm here to ask why. And now you have the focus monitoring report that sort of confirms everything too and addresses additional challenges. And I just want you all to know that this is not going to stop. This is going to get worse if we don't really take this by the hand, tear it down, and rebuild it.
Which is, we are working on that. obviously. I know you say.
I know, but Catherine, we've been working for months.
I know. What I mean, Lori, is we hear you. We do hear you. We're taking it seriously. We are. And I think the focused monitoring report with the collaborative team is the first part. No, we're only staffed as well as we're staffed, and I appreciate that you mentioned that, whether it's 50 at the bottom or 2 at the top, but
well, staffing can't be a reason not to provide special ed services, and again, that we're caught in this. How do we get out of this?
The extended wide services start in July. We know the urgency. Many of them have already been, and I'll follow up. Yeah, I'll follow up with yours and find out what happened. But thank you.
I encourage the board, please.
Hi, I'm Jean Pacino. I think most of you know me. You guys, you got a memo here from Rick Pembroke, and it was basically the same one that this lady was talking about. But on here it says legal fees of $96,000. 96. I got good news for you, because I know how we can save some money. Now, I know I've been reading in the banner where some of this is because of the due process complaints. And there's 2 due process complaints. One I'm directly involved in. And that was a due process complaint that was brought against my sister by the district. She didn't bring that complaint. The district brought it against her. So they spent oodles of money to have a lawyer draft everything up in order to take my sister to due process to oust Nathan into a residential facility, into a 24/7 residential facility. Isn't that a lot of money?
It's forever to get that.
And then they dropped half of it. So they said, okay, well, we're not doing this anymore. He doesn't have to go to residential because of the big scandal. And now it's still going on, even though it's been 45 days, and they should have made a ruling. This lawyer in Burlington, Patty Page, is still involved. I'm still getting text messages from her. So if I'm getting text messages from her, she's still on the payroll. So who's responsible for paying Patty Page and to tell Patty Page it's okay to still be involved in this? I mean, who monitors that? Is there just an open checkbook for these lawyers?
You know, this board has asked for an accounting of the lawyer bills. I will say, not to answer any question directly, but that in some of the due process there is reimbursement from insurance. And I have said this before, this is my personal opinion, that in a district that spends $44 million total in all the member districts, unfortunately, without an HR director and other things, unfortunately, it is somewhat the cost of doing business. We will have a detailed report on where the money was spent by category, and you know, it is a public piece of information. The due process is not really a complaint, it's a process, but that's just a technical term.
Which should have ended. It's been longer than 45 days. There should have been a ruling. And all I keep asking is, do a ruling. Do a ruling and move on. Don't keep spending the taxpayers' money.
Jean, you're exactly right. A ruling has to happen, and that is the officer that does the ruling, and you've been very clear with her about that.
Well, that $96,000 can give your support staff their raise that they're looking for. And because you were so adamant about ousting an 8-year-old and putting him into a residential placement that he didn't need, why don't you give Melody here all that money so she can have her son where he belongs and gets his education?
So,
I'm suffering cognitive dissonance.
okay, well, I'm going to move on.
With this complaint, where we have somebody complaining that we're defending ourselves against her, I gather, or your group. You can't complain about it. We're the taxpayers, we're defending ourselves and the community against whatever your problem was. That's all. You can't complain about that.
And you know what, unfortunately, while you're free to say what you want, we are not free to say things about a student or personnel or student matters or the due process. Just, you know, I mean, if it's listed as due process, it's listed as due process. So, is there something else you'd like to add?
Nope.
Okay,
Nope.
thank you.
Thank you.
Are there other public comments? So we're going to move on to the
Sean Marie,
I have,
I'm sorry, I didn't see.
that's fine. A couple of questions. This one's for Catherine. Am I to understand that we still have this person employed 2.5 days that I didn't know about? I don't know if any other board member knows that.
Michelle LaRoche is who's hired 2.5 days.
Yeah, I sent an email. She's a substitute. That's
okay.
not someone that substitutes don't usually come for approval, but.
Okay, I thought it was a different person.
No, it's the one I sent the email about
Okay.
that you
And
all.
the other thing.
With her resume.
Okay. The other thing, I would like an answer to the lady, Tara Sky asked Rick Pembroke, so I'm asking the same question.
Well, when we get to finance, you can ask the Medicaid question?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to move now to the finance-related.
John Breen.
I'm sorry.
One more.
Mr. Crossman.
Mr. Crossman?
Yeah. If you look at all the money that we're spending for her niece and my son and everything else that's going on with the report and all this money you guys are going to have to spend, if you brought in professionals to help the staff, like a New England Center or something like that, you would be spending far less money.
I think the plan is to bring them in.
Actually, they've been here and they will be continuing. That's correct. They have been here and they will be continuing. The New England Center specifically.
But to help redo the program and make it right? Or to concentrate?
Thank you.
All right, are there any other public comments? So we're going to move on to finance. Did somebody say something?
No.
So, finance-related items, we have the review details of the SVSU additional assessment request from June 20th. I see here, I didn't even notice, but there's 10 documents. And then there's, are those all of them? One? Yeah, 10. And then the transfers for FY13, and I know there wasn't much time to review them. Rick did put them together rather quickly. We met only last Thursday. Rick, if you just want to do an overview, I did look at the different categories, and then under the B part, it was the specific transfers in. So, and then I'm not exactly sure what the Medicaid question is, but I can ask Fran or Tara to reframe the question, because I'm not exactly sure what the specific question is. So you want to start from the top on the reviewing the assessment piece?
Sure. You know, at the last meeting, I reported a projected deficit in numerous special ed resource rooms that are direct cost to the districts, as well as a projected deficit in the administrative assessment stream that is proportionately assessed out based on pupils each district has. The question was asked is, I believe, I interpreted the question asked, is there money in other assessment streams that could be moved to cover some of the deficits? I reported there are some assessment streams, most notably early education, financial, and technology, that have surpluses. Not large. The early ed one's a little bit deceiving because there's some year-end money that's taken place, as well as some rent expenses that have to come out of there. So, you know, if the district, if the board chooses to move money from those assessment streams to cover this deficit, they can. It's really, you know, moving from one pocket to the other. If for example, I take $20,000 out of financial and to soften the assessment stream, it's just going to be that much more I'll have to assess in financial in 2015. So it's kind of the Fram oil filter. You can pay me now or you can pay me later. The other questions that were asked, which has been touched on a little bit, is what were the main drivers. We talked about the drivers in the special ed area. You know, what were the main drivers in the assessment stream, the administrative assessment stream area. And as I think I reported last time, I don't think this is anything new to you. that it's largely salaries and benefits for staff that was placed on administrative leave. That is not a reimbursable expense, that has to be a non-reimbursable expense, so it was placed in the administrative assessment stream so we could pay those bills and not falsely report them to the state as a reimbursable expense. I broke out the budget stat report that you see on a monthly basis into the various assessment stream, so you could see them a little more condensed and coherently. I hope that helped. Those are all the various documents, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. I hope I answered as much as I could. I did put this together fairly quickly Friday morning and Monday morning and got it out to you. So.
And I think, you know, when Jim had mentioned, you know, for different people to take a look at things so we could look through them, it was a lot, and I see that it was a lot to look through all, you know, in a short amount of time, but I appreciate that you did get it there for us to look through. And can I just ask, I know I read in the memo that there'll be 2 other warrants running, or 3 maybe, till through July. So the budget stat report that's right now is through the warrants for today, right? Sean Marie.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
George. On this budget deficit report, and I'm not looking for names or anything like that, but Rick, is it possible for the board to get a more specific breakdown on what it is that drives these figures in these different areas? And I don't mean names. I see what you've got here. For example, early education. I use that as an example. Well, what is it that made us go $78,000 over in early education?
It's not over.
What is it?
That's not over in
We're to the good 78,000.
78 to the good.
No, but in the ones that we did get.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is, can we get a better breakdown? Or am I the only one that needs that?
I can give you all the detail you need. I mean, it's you know, the administrative one is exactly what I told you. I mean, we had a number of people on administrative leave that were normally in a reimbursable assessment stream, and that administrative leave does not qualify for special ed reimbursement. So I couldn't pay them out of that assessment stream. I had to pay them out of the administrative assessment stream. Now, I can give you all the detail you want. I'm trying to give you as much as I can and still protect a little bit of confidentiality.
Yeah, we have to do that.
I think. I can't tell if it, is your...
Well, you know, I looked at this, I made a spreadsheet. And so I noticed that on the assessed special ed expenses to districts, that in both the secondary and in BSD, most of their deficits occur in transport. And I wondered why that is. There's an explanation for that.
Yeah, it's largely centered around the PLUS program. And it was expenses that were not planned for and were not budgeted for that occurred.
Yeah. It's 296% in BSD, and it's 74% over in MAU.
Yeah,
I've talked to each one of those. I've talked to each one of those individual districts.
Yep.
Specifically about what the drivers were in their specific resource rooms.
Okay.
Go ahead. I appreciate that Rick has talked with each of the districts, but because we're on CAT TV at this time with that question, I think we need to remember that the PLUS program is a program that is used for students who are in need of more intensive work behaviorally, and sometimes we do not know ahead of time when they are needed to need that service, and so it goes through the IEPs, and then we have transportation from the districts to that location. There are some other additional programmatic transportations that were not budgeted sufficiently, so that is an issue that has to be looked at in the future, and I think that's the kind of detail that, so some of it is, you know, unbudgeted, as Rick had said, and then some of it is unanticipated.
Oh, Catherine?
George?
I guess one of the things that I ask is not so much, is there a better way of doing it? I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yes, in fact, having Michelle LaRoche come in, she's described to us several different methods that we could start looking at that would be different, that actually start before it ever really gets to finance. It's in that budgeting piece. As you look at our service plan, as we put it together in October, we actually should be building, we can build that budget from that, and I think with better oversight from that level of administration in the department, not the finance department, but in the special ed department, we should be able to do that. She's given us a couple of ideas about coding some of the accounts.
I just want to make something perfectly clear. This had nothing to do with the finance department.
Well, I just said...
This is the result of inadequacies in the special ed department.
I think that's what I was speaking to, about the new ways that we can look at it, and also with new oversight, hopefully.
Larry?
My question goes to credibility of the numbers that we have received. In the prior meeting, in the newspaper article, you quoted as saying you've been against holding back. Can you elaborate on that? And if possible, who is it and why is it?
So, could you repeat the question? Somebody repeat the question.
How much is it? What are we finally faced with? And I get the impression we don't know yet.
I'll be honest, to sit here right today and tell you I don't know.
Can it be?
Well, because I sat in a meeting on Monday with your substitute SPED administrator and was handed another $20,000 of bills that were found in the administrative assistant's office of the SPED department. And when she was asked by the superintendent if this is the end, she said, well, I truly don't know because I haven't been allowed to go through all the files and the drawers in the special ed office. So I have no clue what's in that office.
Well, and she did go through it and did not find any. That's enough, Rick.
Well, that's first I've heard of that, so I don't know.
I didn't hear that.
Well, what I'm saying is that I also have 2 bills on my desk that I'm still trying to work out the background for, that I will be getting to Rick, that he knows about, and we did uncover some other bills.
We've got legal bills are only paid through March at this point. We've anticipated what the last few months are going to be, but I haven't seen any more recent bills than what's in March.
Well, the April bills have been submitted.
Just being honest with the board, I'm just telling you what I know. And I've been kept in the dark. When this whole thing started to come to light, I sent an email to the board. I think it was late March, early April, asking for an executive session.
You know what? I just want to say that in the minutes, and if you look at last time, if you look at the last meeting, and Richard hasn't had time to write them, I responded to Rick's comments that you're talking about being on an island, not having his back. Leon is here tonight. I met with, when Rick sent that email to the board, it was after I had spoken to Catherine, and I said that we had 2 ongoing investigations that were happening, and that when the dollars that were what he was anticipating were collated, that he could, and the personnel issues and the other investigation was, you know, coming to a close, we would bring it forward. That is exactly what has happened. So if you know, it sounds like people are looking for something to blame. I think Rick has made it very clear he does not know what the extent of the billing is. I think that we're all aware around the table that there have been some deficiencies in special ed. It's come up every meeting for months. I don't know how much more specific you would like the administration to be in terms of, you know, you see the extra legal fees, you see the administration, you see that there was retirement. I mean, there's, if you want, I'm not sure what
And the
you're looking for.
responsibility ends right here. This is the person who is responsible ultimately. I am the superintendent of schools, and I am ultimately responsible. And I think Rick has made it very clear that this does not lie in the finance office.
So, Fran?
I don't think anybody's looking for blame here.
Oh, my God.
I'm going to talk, and you can say, oh, my God, I could care less what you say. But I'm going to tell you something. I really am irritated, and you've got my email that you said I was bullying you on. But my point is, I want to know what the hell this board is doing when you ask us to vote for something. We don't even have a damn clue what the hell we're voting for, and we don't know. That's just it. That's what frustrates the hell out of me. When we're asking, when Larry's asking, I'm asking, we can't ask Rick because he's been hogtied or something. You know, my point is,
he is not.
I want to know what all those fees are, and we ought to know them now. Not another month, 2 months later, right now. And there's a reason we want to know. Because I'm not voting for anything until we find out what the total costs are.
All right, so tell me what the reason is. Tell me what the reason you want to know is.
I want to know what the hell we got to look forward to. Shasberry's just got another 20 grand or 12,000, whatever it is. You've got North Bennington came here for concessions. They're going to have to pay some of this. I mean, come on, this is totally ridiculous. Unacceptable.
Well, it's unacceptable, but we don't have the answer.
Then why don't we?
Well,
because there are, no. There are still unanticipated. We don't know if there are additional bills. I think Rick has been very clear about this. Another may surface at some point that we may not know of. I have one on my desk that I'm still trying to deal with that had surfaced, that I'm working with to get the background for Rick's department.
Yeah.
I have 3 others where the vendors are not giving us the information they need to give us in order that we can know whether it's a reimbursable to a direct student service or not, so that we can apply for our higher reimbursable amounts. We're trying to work with these vendors to get identities on this. This is part of, Fran, what is happening and why, because if you have a bill come in that you didn't know was coming in, it arrives and you have to deal with it. Now, it's not, I think Rick felt we were nearly at the end of it, and as he said on Monday, we ended up with a few more bills that we had to take care of. And Michelle is working very hard with the administrative assistant, and I'm helping, and other people are helping to identify those bills. And we're doing the best we can right now, Fran. And we'll keep at these warrants. That is the tracking of it.
You know, no one says we don't want to put blame, but it seems like this is a funnel. They're all coming out of one spot, SPED. And that's where all the bills that are in delinquent are coming from. So it's got to be something in SPED that's wrong. Someone didn't do their job. That's the only thing. How could a bill sit in March and just come up now? I mean, someone in SPED, I mean, I'm not blaming anybody but that department, because every single bill plus, that's all SPED.
And I think we have closure in that department in the sense that we have.
But it's killing our budgets. That's it.
We have to get
our fund balances for 2 years down the line are going to be down 40,000, and that's going to kill us 2 years down the line. When we go to taxpayers in Bennington, we just got nailed, and we're going to, it's terrible.
So Julie and Gano came here tonight because they are saying, and they're on the ground, they're saying that there isn't enough at the administrative level to be at meetings, to do these things. And we all know that we had one special ed director, we did not have a coordinator, we did not have an assistant. One person. So yes, there were deficiencies because there was one person.
And the superintendent, I will say again, is ultimately responsible, and that is
Jean Marie.
Yes.
Going back to Fran and Larry's question, I think that one of the reasons that all of us are concerned is the time. I guess what we're saying is, can't we put it on the fast track to find out if there's in some drawer some more bills, so that we can get this, so that we can get it on the table and get it taken care of instead of getting these surprises each.
I asked her today if she found any more, and she said no. That was her response to me. And she's looked through it all. That's what she said. I can check with her tomorrow. I'm on vacation tomorrow, but I'm going to be in the morning, and I will check with her again. But that is what she told me today, because I specifically asked her.
So one of the things that Catherine, I'm just going to repeat, said is that, you know, if a bill arrives,
yeah, this isn't even what's there. I mean, you don't know it's arriving.
So, it is kind of hard to say. Leon?
I just want, are these bills documented against a formal PO or something? Or they just...
No, that's part of the problem, is they are not.
So that could be part of the fix, you mean?
Well, he is, absolutely.
Formal POs or something.
Absolutely, okay. July 1st. Yeah, don't worry about it. Rick has been very...
There's always a
Rick has been very specific. Am I misspeaking?
Let me just use the analogy. You know, if your wife goes down to J.C. Penney and gets a credit card and has it mailed to a P.O. box in Pownell and doesn't let you know you have it until all of a sudden a bill collector calls you.
Right.
I don't care how good a P.O. system you set up.
Okay,
that's
why
correct,
I was asking
Rick.
whether they was attached to that or not. So if not...
We've got great internal controls, but I can't control how everybody contracts with somebody to get a job done, and then all of a sudden I find out and I say, well, wait a minute, you're supposed to have a contract. Well, she didn't tell me that, and I ordered it.
So
I have a specific example.
We needed to do was make known to everybody, they don't do business with this district without a contract.
Rick is being very firm.
I've tried that for 3 years, and I've been told that I had to avoid that at times.
So
may I give an example?
Catherine and then Claude.
Yeah, thank you. One example is that when we have students in the field that, for example, have a behavioral concern, we often will have a principal or a teacher or an IEP team, most notably an IEP team, ask for an evaluation of that student. And that is requested in the past. It's been requested and may not come within a contract we already have with that person because it might be outside. There might not be a contract. I think Rick has put into place going forward with the principals a good, solid direction that nothing will be paid to a vendor contracted service without a contract. So that's the first improvement. It goes on. They have very good internal controls in finance department, extremely good, but they have to work with what they get.
Rick, aren't all these bills covered by IEPs?
No.
They're not?
No.
Some are in other categories of 504, some are consultant work with students who are not identified or who are not 504. That's why we need the oversight that we've been talking about at the school level. And and one of the models that we're looking at, which Michelle LaRoche brought to us, is that the principal and the director would sit down and decide how that service delivery would be made, because the director would have the oversight for, and the oversight of the funding, and the director would have, the principal, excuse me, would have the schedule of paraprofessionals, the schedule of speech and language if that was needed. It's a system that we're going to have to build up from this reorganization, and we must do it.
Okay, so
I
the
think
Medicaid
Ray.
question, I'm
Ray.
sorry, Ray?
Do you want to go to the Medicaid question first? Or?
I was going to go to, I'm not sure what it is, but I don't think it's been answered, whatever it is.
The Medicaid?
I'm not sure it was the Medicaid question.
I'm not sure either, because Fran said he
as much as it
wanted
was
to
a
make
follow-up.
I want to hear what the question Tara
my
Sky
concern
asked
is yes.
about the Medicaid. Tara, you want to ask that question again on the...
I just wanted to know if any of the funds that are now not able to be paid, is that from a Medicaid deficit? Is that from
There's no Medicaid deficit.
No, Medicaid is fine.
Okay.
Medicaid is fine. And the follow-up question, which I interpreted, I think we've discussed in great detail. The question was, should the community be concerned? And I said yes. And that's because there's a great deal of unknown still out there, and I'm very concerned. Every day that gets closer, I'm a little less concerned because at some point this fiscal year has to end. And the good news is school is closed, there's no more services being delivered, so unless we truly find an invoice in a box somewhere, which frankly, based on my past history over the last couple of weeks, is distinctly possible, we'll probably find an end to this in the next couple of weeks.
Let's hope not.
It's been frustrating at best, and I got to say, since I've got the floor, and I don't think it's intentional, but since we're on TV and the public is listening, I mean, I need to defend my department. My department is stellar. My department has had stellar evaluations in the form of annual audits. We just had our own fiscal monitoring service on all of our grants, and we're getting commendations for our internal controls in our accounting system. You'll see that shortly. So I hope we be careful of the accusations, how broadly and inconsequential some may seem. I do take it personally. My staff takes it personally. I've had staff members crying because they don't know what they don't know. They take their job so serious, something drops on their desk and it bothers them. They take it personal, and they're afraid they're going to get painted with this brush that, frankly, we've started to get painted with, and it's not fair. And I mean, we got at some point someone has to defend them, and I'm going to do it because no one else has done it so far.
Okay, Ray, did you have a question on something that was related to this, or we're going to move on to the consent agenda?
No, I have a comment. Brief, I hope.
Decisions to finance.
Look, I think this board has two tasks. One is to establish what the total extent of the problem is and figure out how to deal with it this year. And the second one is, these folks have come here in various configurations time after time asking for us to do something to improve the special services for their children and children of other families in the community. We have to do something about that. I know we are attempting to do it, but it's clear to them, it's clear that they don't see the results. And that is our primary responsibility. I mean, the financial issue is important because all of us are concerned about that. We have to be concerned about it because we have to be concerned with our budgets. But I think those are the two tasks, and I think the sooner we get on with resolve, I mean, I know this work is being done to figure out what the total size of the problem is. I understand that. But the restructuring has to be done in a way that is visible to the public and has follows a very good cybernetic model. So there's a lot of feedback and a lot of information from below and above circulating around, and people know what's happening and are included in the process. Good communication. But I think for now, though, what we have to do is decide what we want to do about I mean, we were asked last week about funding the known deficit. And
Go ahead.
that is what we were asked, was it?
Right, and we voted to...
Approved it.
We approved it.
Yeah, I didn't approve it.
Right.
And I would like, I think the one thing that crops up from looking at this memo is whether we want to take the surpluses that are showing in this list and apply them to either the assessed part of the special ed deficits or the administration, or both. I would think both, because different parts of it seem appropriate to go against the special ed cost overruns, and other parts seem appropriate to put against the administration issues. And I think that's the last topic I think we ought to discuss on this for now.
I thought Rick had already recommended where he was going to...
No, he didn't make a recommendation that I heard.
Today or last week?
Today.
I did not make a recommendation today.
No. Last week you recommended assessment increases. Right. But in fact, if we apply, the prior question is whether we want to apply these surpluses to these deficits and reduce the assessment amount.
That's correct. Let me just...
We voted for that. It's done.
Let me just say something. You know, the forecasted deficit that I projected last week, I still feel comfortable today, even with the $20,000, and I'm trusting Catherine that there's nothing else down in that office.
Well, I asked the question. I didn't look personally. Just say that.
I'd feel more comfortable if 4 people went in that office a month ago or 2 months ago and went through every document and looked at it and touched it and felt it and made a decision where it belonged, whether it was a bill or a personnel file or a student file or the garbage or whatever it was, but unfortunately that hasn't happened. And
and did anybody?
You know, the good news is
we have to sign this again.
I'm not getting calls from Tampa, Florida anymore looking for $78,000 that I didn't know I owed.
What was that?
So those calls have stopped.
So do you think...
I can speculate that there's not any real old bills in that office.
Okay.
But it's total speculation.
Well, when I come back from vacation, I will look myself and I will do that again, but...
What I want to ask is sort of a question about how we establish the final number that we have to deal with. Do you believe that your staff, everybody that's working on this issue is going to be comfortable to work it through, the number they come up with will stand up within a small, whatever material importance range gets assigned to it accounting-wise, and that they'll be comfortable, they'll feel secure about the work they've done, that they're not going to be attacked, and that we can go forward with that number? Or do you feel maybe we should have an outside forensic or some other audit that comes in and establishes this figure so everybody's secure about this?
I think that is something that would happen in other organizations, that an outside control would come in.
Right.
It's definitely something
you could do that. That's no problem. I mean, by the time our auditors come in, I am very confident that the balance sheets and the income and expense statements that we hand them to audit will be in very good shape. I have no doubt, based on the minutes they will read, and they read every minute of every board meeting, that they will spend a significant amount of time looking at special ed expenditures.
Yeah.
But if you want to hire a forensic, you can do that. That's perfectly within your power. That's going to be more expensive.
I know that. I understand that.
Can we bring this part to, I'm sorry.
Well, I just wanted one more.
We have a consent agenda and some other things. So what is it, I'm going to let Catherine speak.
Well,
what is it
my
that we
question
need
still
to do?
hasn't been answered about the allocation of the surpluses against deficits.
Well, I am comfortable. Let's start with how deep the hole is side first. I'm comfortable with what I told you last week. I'm still comfortable with that today. The surpluses that you see, which are, again, largely...
You've qualified them in the paragraph underneath.
Right. And, you know, I know Karen knows what, she had to replace a lot of equipment, computer equipment that failed towards the end of this year. You know off the top of your head how much money you spent in the last couple of weeks?
About 28.
28 plus?
I still have June bills that I haven't gotten from vendors yet. So that'll show up in the July warrant, so we have to add that too. But the 28 was not just computer equipment, it was other bills that were...
Right, that was your lead, that was your rent and stuff, right?
Yeah, and we're still working on it.
So, you know, I'm comfortable with 15 out of finance, you know, I'm comfortable with the 10 out of technology, although I haven't talked with Frank, but where that's, well, that saving's difficult because that's specific to districts. So you could...
Right, so it would have to be allocated by district.
You could apply it back to the sped portion of the district.
Right.
You know, the early ed's still a little bit up in the air, you know.
And that should be...
35,000 probably would be comfortable with.
That's a conservative low. I mean, I...
So, you know, could we offset, you know, that $400,000 by, you know, 60, 70, 80,000 bucks, sure.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking in terms of taking the surpluses in special ed administration, early ed, and applying them to the deficits in similar programs, special ed, both elementary and secondary, plus and English language learners. Well, plus has a surplus, sorry.
Plus has a small surplus.
Yeah.
And the money will come back in FY14?
It's not going to come back.
It won't come back.
It's not going to come back in FY14. You'll pay that much more in FY15 in your assessment.
I'm talking about the reimbursement.
Oh, reimbursement is in FY13.
But when will the money come, in 13 or 14?
Comes in about August, but we push it back into 13.
So do we need a new motion?
I'm not recommending one, but you're free to make one.
No, just,
Could we make a motion not to do the forensic? Or positive motion?
There's no motion.
Is it positive, or?
We haven't made any motions right now.
We
It's
don't
all
need a
discussion.
forensic.
The auditors will be here in the fall looking at FY13, which closes in 2 days, and then the checks will go, you know, as Rick said, there'll be 2 other warrants, or at least through July, and they'll be pushed back to this fiscal year.
But if we made these applications of the surpluses, that total deficit in administration would be somewhat less, right? Than 158.
Yes.
I was just going to...
It's not a huge amount.
There's policies and procedures in place with the outside auditors that before the year is over,
Yes.
they're going to find out anything that's
I think the point is, it's a strong finance department, the internal controls are there, and there is not a need for a forensic. That is the point, and this is not resting in finance. I think Rick has been very clear about that.
There's not money missing. I mean, typically you do a forensic audit if there's money missing. I mean, there's no money missing.
Well, I don't want it. But could we have like a motion for faith in the existing control system?
I don't think you need it. It's there. I can attest it's there.
We've been talking about this for an hour, so let's just do something.
The internal control is extremely good. Believe me, I walk it. I know it is. And finance department is extremely strong, and that is one of the things that's been built up over the last years. So it's been very, very good. It's strong.
So are there any questions on the budget status report? And I didn't actually look at the time, is the treasurer's report on the website? If it is, can I have a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
I so motion.
Let me just make sure it's there.
It's there.
It's there.
It is?
It is there. From
All right.
May.
So it's from May. So is there a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
I so move.
That's Jim and Claude seconded it? No, he can't, he's not voting. George?
Second.
Ken? All in favor of accepting the treasurer's report? It's unanimous. The authorization to sign, this is, the warrants are already been approved, but contracts, we're going to skip E, because we're not going to approve any contracts. I don't know how I managed to do that twice, but the motion is to authorize the superintendent to issue intent to hire letters for vacancies that are open during the summer. Larry?
Summary, what's the parameters for that? What type of positions are we talking?
So
Special ed teachers.
Talking teachers, paraprofessionals, we're not talking assistant superintendents.
Well, I think that we would have to have the board meet to do the assistant superintendent. But this is basically what would be teachers and
Paraprofessionals,
we'd
if
have to do
needed.
a special meeting to do the, an assistant superintendent or a director.
Correct.
And this is actually, even though it's intent to hire, it's really just the intent to hire, and in August, if we don't have a special meeting, they will be voted on.
That's correct.
Sean Marie, I don't see how we can go till August.
I know, but I'm just saying that's the plan.
Well, I'm not in favor of that either. I'm but one vote, but I'm not going to vote to authorize anybody unless it comes before the board. That includes hiring.
We'll have a special meeting, that's fine.
Okay,
Well, that's fine, and I'm all for a special meeting.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, that's
So
fine. I
if
have no
that's-
problem with that,
Jim?
George.
Yeah.
Can we change the language? There's a hierarchy here, okay, of hourly people, can we just say she can hire anybody below
Actually,
level this?
You know what?
let's just have a special meeting. This is not
That
some,
clears it up.
George, I'm fine with that. That
Oh, I
is
know,
That's exactly
What
fine.
if,
So I just want to say that right now, this board has not made any motions or suggested that the superintendent can hire, but actually by law, in the new Title 16, the superintendent does have the authority to hire non-certified staff.
That's right.
And let go of non-certified staff.
non-certified is the word?
Non.
Let's just use that word.
Support staff, it's mostly your hourly support people.
But
we're not I will withdraw that.
We're
I'll
going to move to
withdraw
the
it.
consent agenda. Ray, did you?
I just wanted to second having a meeting in July because I
So
think...
we're fine, we don't need a motion. I mean,
I'm not making a motion.
I'm saying.
But may I make my brief comment, please?
No, I'm really getting tired and frustrated, but yes, go ahead.
Thanks. You want me to vote on the consent agenda? Let me make the comment.
Go ahead.
I think we need the meeting in July because we need to hear about progress on restructuring special ed. Thank you.
And I said yes, and Catherine said yes, we all said yes. So is
To
there
a different
someone?
reason, you said yes.
Right, everyone has different reasons. So would somebody like to make a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved to accept it.
Are there any discussion items or questions on the warrants or the minutes or any of the resignations or the one nom form?
Are the warrants part of consent?
Yes.
Yeah.
Darn it, I did it again.
Did you get a second on that?
Yeah, I did.
Can I make one comment on the warrants?
Yes.
And a future suggestion? It has to do with the retirement party for Mr. Hayward in Shasberry. I noticed on the issue, that the SU paid for his gift. You know, it was a significant amount of money. And first of all, I don't know why the SU was paying for a Shasberry principal.
Was it a pass-through?
I don't know what it was, but I don't have, that's not really my point.
It's going to come back to you.
Okay.
I'd like to just move, so that being said, I think that's inappropriate that we should pick one person and the SU pay for.
Right, and I
so-
think Rick has his hand up, so I'm not sure we actually paid for it or if it's just a way to pay for it and it will be
It
reimbursed.
shows there as a gift and a couple
Right.
other things.
So Rick?
But without getting bogged down in that detail.
Okay.
Already there.
Coming from the corporate world.
Oh, hear it now.
Coming from the corporate world, when somebody retires, there's a book. If you retire at 15 years, you get to pick the pink watch, the gold clock, or the shotgun. Okay?
Okay, so is there a motion and a second on the consent agenda?
Well, I think I better clarify the statement. There's
Yeah, please. I want to hear it.
There's a pretty, the Shasberry School Board wanted to provide their principal with a parting gift for years of service. There's only one credit card in the district, which is in my possession. And it had to be used to purchase some of, I guess maybe even all of the gift. Yes. And it was billed back to Shasberry, and Shasberry reimbursed SVSU. No one in SVSU paid for that. Shasberry paid for it. It's just a bill back to that specific district.
Thank you.
And that has been done in other districts previously.
Any other questions?
Larry.
Yes, Larry.
There's a standalone warrant on 35, and then what Jim's arguing about, I hate to bring it up, but it's $56,000. What's that?
For which one?
35.
What page is that on?
Page 1 or 2.
The warrant, or voucher 35?
No explanation is really.
Reading.
Oh, 56, 315,
You're smiling.
74.
That's,
Oh, I know what it is.
What is it?
It's related to a personnel issue. Correct? It's related to a recent personnel issue. I believe, but Rick, you can answer it, obviously.
it's the net check of a settlement to an employee.
Why didn't it go through payroll? Why didn't it go through payroll?
It is payroll.
Oh.
It is. It is a payroll warrant.
It's not on the, is it on the website?
I presume.
Yeah, it must be a buck.
Yeah, it's
Oh, it's the last one. Okay.
yeah, it's right there.
Thank you, Claude.
Page 1, yeah.
Are there any other questions on the warrants? All in favor of the consent agenda? Richard, are you?
Voting against it.
I think we have some opposed. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. So what was the vote?
5 to 4.
5 to 4? I don't have to break a tie, right?
Opposed again? George.
Okay. Reports, the minutes from the Personnel Committee are in there. And we need a motion to go into executive session for personnel.
Can I, other?
Other.
I just want to clarify some information that was presented previously. The salary grids for the teachers and the paras is a compounding grid, and the rates that were expressed were the rates that were placed on the base salaries that compound through the grid. The average increase for the teachers for next year is 3.15. There are some teachers that are getting as much as 5.5%, some as little as 1.25%, and if there's horizontal moves, it could be significantly higher than that. So
it's 1.25 to what?
The average is 3.14%, and I would appreciate if you would consider that for my staff and everyone else's staff. There's a number of staff members that are being affected by this, not only at central office, but out in your buildings as well, through your tech staff and other staff out there as well.
Psychologists, behavior specialists.
No, I don't want you to think that the increases were 1.25% for the teachers and 1.5% for the paras, because that's not accurate.
Some paras will only get 1.5%. Some teachers will only get 1.25%. So I know what you're saying.
The average is
The average
Three.
You're talking about an average. An average is an average.
Some are getting 5.5.
And you know what? Just to be perfectly honest, there's another pool of money that is also paid, which this board hasn't heard about, which they've been asking for a year, and we need the report on the money spent on the security for the August meeting or the July meeting that we haven't gotten yet either. So,
Happy.
That was,
Am I going to executive session now?
we talked about it on some
we're going to go
warrants.
into executive session.
We
for
talked about it on
personnel.
some warrants.
Right, but we wanted a report on how much and what was spent. And if they went out to bid, which Rick said yes.
He did.
Okay, so we have Leon
And that was
Larry.
approved by the superintendent of schools.
I just wanted to say, you said,
On the vote we took on the consent agenda, I think we have a little, we re-vote or?
We have 4 to 5.
Were there
Okay.
any abstentions?
Ray, in particular, did you vote for?
I voted for.
Thank you.
Leon?
I just wanted to say, on that bullying prevention, I have in my notes that we made some changes and it should be out for
Okay, well, we'll look at it.
to review those changes in
Okay.
terms of
All right.
adult against student.
Thank you, Leon.
Okay, what did I do?